Hello everyone, and welcome to an original Rebuilding Malaysia podcast. My name is Mariam Mokhtar, and I'd like to play for you a recording by Thomas Fann, the former chairman of Bersih. This recording is from Thomas's last talk before his resignation from Bersih. The talk was organised by Demokratik UK, a group of progressive Malaysian students based in the United Kingdom. Thomas's talk was called A Dialogue on Reforming Democracy in Malaysia. And in the podcast, he lists the 10 key institutional reforms needed under the Madani Government. I hope you enjoy Thomas's talk. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ben, for the kind introduction. I still need to be introduced in case I don't assume that every one of you know me. I am Thomas Fann. I am the current chairperson of Bersih from 2018 until now, and recently we had an internal election where I was re-elected unopposed, so another 2 years for me. I have been serving in the Bersih Steering Committee since 2017. After Dato' Amrika, I never had the privilege of serving with her, but of course, like everyone else, we do know her and greatly admire her. But when she stepped down, there was, for the first time, a Bersih election in 2013, and I came in as the Southern Vice Chair of Bersih because I'm from the South. Johor Bahru is my town, my hometown, and that's still where I reside. So then after that, the second term, I became the treasurer of Bersih, and I was involved in organizing the Bersih 4 and Bersih 5, which is the last rally that we had in 2016. So I was the commander on the ground, to coordinate the movement of the troops and all those things. So that was what I was with. And then after 2018, of course, for Malaysians, that was a very historic year in our country, in the sense that we had a change in government for the very first time when Pakatan Harapan won the federal government, and EN was defeated for the first time. So it was New Malaysia. The term New Malaysia was bandied around, and there was a euphoria that things are going to get better. We are going to move forward from then on. But that euphoria lasted only about 22 months before we had the Sheraton move. So those were the period where I was the chairperson of the steering committee of Bersih. After GE 14, through Sheraton move, then GE 15, where we had a hung parliament, and then the 5 days of negotiation to form the government. So now we have a new Prime Minister in Admrl-Gen. And the question in all our mind and heart is, will there be reforms under Admrl-Gen, who was very much the person who was the catalyst for the Reformasi movement, in 1998, where we saw tens of thousands of people after he was sacked came to the streets demanding for reforms. And of course, in the 25 years, he has gone to jail twice, served almost a total of 11 years in jail on charges of sodomy both times. And after G15, he was pardoned and came out from jail. And after many political upheaval, he is the Prime Minister of the Reformasi. So are we going to see reforms under this Madani government or not? And I think that is basically the gist of what I want to present to you in this next 20 minutes or so. After that, we will open up for Q&A, and I'm happy to take any question, whether it is related to my presentation or not, but hopefully it's related to Malaysia, hopefully it's related to electoral and institutional reform, or to Bersih. But if there's any other questions you have, feel free to throw it in. I'll try to answer. So we have the Prime Minister, after I think about 2 months in office or so, came out with this word Madani. I think at that time we were like, what is this word Madani? And we like many people, was not too sure of what it meant. How many of you heard of this word before, Madani, before the Prime Minister kind of launched it as only one, two? Well, good for you. But the rest of us were like wondering Madani. But as he went along to explain the concept, basically it's a civil society. Not civil society as in as NGO, that's part of it, but a society that upholds certain values. And some of the values are, for example, the 6 pillars of Malaysia Madani are sustainability, prosperity, there's innovation, respect, trust, and compassion. A society that is essentially inclusive of all Malaysians. I think that kind of like hit home for many of us, who struggled and fought for a better Malaysia, a new Malaysia. But what does all that mean? Better and new. But I think a lot of these ideals resonated with us. That the vision that he has for Malaysia is very much in line with what we have been struggling for. So we welcome it. But in order to be a Madani Malaysia, there has to be more than talk. Every Prime Minister that come in from in power, they will coin their own slogan. One Malaysia. Who's that? One Malaysia. Have you forgotten, is it? So quickly. Yeah, of course that was magic, and that kind of like evoked a sense of like hope that maybe finally, we're going to be truly one Malaysia, regardless of our background, ethnicity, religion. We are all putting our hands to the plow to build a new Malaysia, one Malaysia. That's a good slogan. But in the end, we know that it's one Malaysia for one family, one person. Yeah. So then, after that, you have Mahathir coming back, his second coming. What was the slogan really? Malaysia Baru? Was there a slogan under Mahathir? But the word Malaysia Baru was bandied around a lot, because there was, I think, collectively a sense that this is going to be the new Malaysia. And I have to lay claim to that on behalf of Bersih, the term Malaysia Baru. It was actually the slogan that we used in our last rally in Bersih 5, where we satukan tenaga Malaysia Baru, something like that. And I remember it was actually Hisham Rice who come up with this slogan for us. 2018, that seems to be like that. And then Muhyiddin had his own slogan. I so forgot. Malaysia Prihatin, or something like that. Then of course Ismail Sabri have Satu Keluarga, right? Yeah. So Anwar has his own Malaysia Madani, and we hope it is more than a slogan, but there is actually a vision for Malaysia. So it's idealistic, it's noble, but Malaysia Madani is not achievable without good governance and institutional reforms. Any reforms that comes through must be in alignment with this idea of respect and inclusiveness and working towards sustainability and all that, all right? So I want to throw out what, of course, we will not claim that these are the most comprehensive list. These are just the Bersih list. Now, Bersih do not fight for, we don't go into battle for everything. We are focused on electoral reform and institutional reform that basically uphold democracy. We don't get into the economy, we don't get into climate change, we don't get into ethnic issues unless it affects democracy. And so we are pretty clear on what we are focused on. So the plan that basically we are focusing on, and this has recently become the #1 issue, is reforming the Attorney General Chamber and the MACC. Now, what is the problem here? Recently, you may have heard the news that the Deputy Prime Minister, Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, was DNAA, discharged not amounting to acquittal. So that is a process, or rather a procedure that can be applied in a case that is ongoing. If new evidence come forward, the Attorney General's office can apply to the judge that they do not want to continue with the case, and the judge will then make the judgment to discharge not amounting to acquittal. So 47 corruption charges were just dropped after going through almost 4 years of trial and almost 100 witnesses in court, and probably millions spent, in conducting that case. When it is near to judgment at the High Court, the Attorney General withdrew the charges, and he was discharged, not amounting to acquittal. Yes. Which means that he can be charged again for the same charges, but rarely would someone who get a DNAA be charged again. But more likely, after a year or less, the accused can apply for a total discharge, and you will be given, because the argument will be that they say it's not fair that this thing is hanging over my client, this potential to be charged, and it's not fair on him. If there's no further evidence from the prosecution, drop the whole thing, and it has happened. There was a spy master of Malaysia, remember, under Najib, what's the name, Hasna or something like that. So when Najib fell, it was revealed that this spy master of his that was doing all kind of covert action pocketed 50 million ringgit. These are slush funds that they use for all kind of covert operation. She was charged and things like that, but she got a DNAA, and then not long after that, it was totally discharged. So that is the process. And I believe that for Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, he will not be charged again because it is expedient. We can only guess for Anwar to get the support of Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, who is the president of Admrl. This being a hung parliament, Anwar needs all the support he can get. So, though with 47 charges, he was made deputy prime minister. Bersih was not silenced. We issued a statement rejecting that when there was rumor that he was going to be appointed. But at that time, if I bother to read the social media and Malaysia Kini commentators, we were slammed left and right. You know, you guys are just naive, lah. You know, this is real politics. You know, Anwar needs the support of Zahid Hamidi to become prime minister. Principle doesn't matter anymore. You know, this is real politics. But you know, we understand real politics. We understand his need for support at that time. But if Bersih does not speak up and stand on the principle of what is the right process or what is the right thing to do, who will speak? You know, if I were to come out and say, hey, yeah, I know he got 47 corruption charges going to court, but it's okay, you know, Anwar need him to become the prime minister. I think that would be the end of organization like Bersih. Don't you think so? I mean, as a civil society organization, you know, we have to be that voice, clear voice of conscience, where we do not look at the real politics, but we look at the principle, you know, that matters. So he was appointed, and now he is, all the charges dropped. So our big concern is that the Attorney General has that power under the Constitution. Article 145(3). Give that power to the Attorney General to initiate, you know, and to conduct and withdraw charges, even an ongoing charges. My argument, you know, was that if there were new evidence to prove that Zahid was innocent, couldn't they present it in the court to the judge so that allow the judge to look at those evidence and then make a decision that he's not guilty? Maybe I'm innocent, you know, but in my simple mind, that's what should have been done. They said there are new evidence, you know, and they have to look at it, so they have to withdraw the charges. No. Then the other argument that Anwar, of course, he came under a lot of heat as a result of that, was that he led it to the Attorney General, the outgoing one, Idris Harun, who was about to retire. He said that Idris Harun came to see him and explained to him that he has to withdraw the charges. And then Anwar said, then I leave it to you. You have the discretion, so you decide whether to withdraw or not. So it's not me, you know. I have trouble with that because, first of all, the Attorney General is an appointee of the Prime Minister. Yes, it's not Anwar, but Anwar is the Prime Minister. And secondly, the fact that he came to see Anwar. If he doesn't need to refer to Anwar, he has total discretion. He could have just do the DNAA and without referring to, that is his constitutional authority and right. But he went to basically seek Anwar's permission to do the DNA, and it was released. So our concern is that the next person on the list will be Najib. Would also, now Najib is in jail, yes, for the SRC International, but there are 3 other cases ongoing related to one MDB, the big ones, and income tax, where he could be in jail for a very, very long time as a result. The concern now is that Zahid was just testing the water, how the public will react to this. And if the public reaction is not that strong, then you will go for the big one to release Najib. We issued a statement on Malaysia Day on the state of the nation, but we also stated in that statement that there is a red line that Anwar should not cross, and that is to apply the DNA through the Attorney General for Najib and Rosmah. The reason simply is because as the ex-Prime Minister who subjected the country to the 1MDB's scam, there has to be accountability. There has to be accountability. People have gone to jail for stealing a can of Milo. Said Sadiq has been sentenced to 7 years jail, 10 million ringgit fine, 2 strokes of the cane for 1.2 million ringgit. Najib, we are talking in billions, and that the country is still paying for. And I think we'll be paying for this debt until 2030 or something like that. There has to be accountability. And I think if Najib is DNAA, using the current powers of the Attorney General, the Malaysian public will not accept it. And there will be consequences. The consequences are, of course, holding protests. Bersih has already drawn the red line that will be something that leadership will be needed, and it may be Bersih that will be providing that leadership. But more than that, the consequence will be electoral. At the next general election, the people who have rejected UMNO and gave their votes to Perikatan Nasional, Bersatu and PAS, will continue to leave whatever UMNO have left at this space. And not only that, Pakatan Harapan supporters, some may switch over as well and give their vote to the other side, which is perfectly within their right. Or more likely is that they would not participate in any more election in Malaysia, which will be a great tragedy for the country. So the consequence of a decision, a political decision for his survival, can have dire consequences. So we are calling for a reform to this by removing the role of the public prosecutor from the Attorney General. The Attorney General should be appointed by the Prime Minister as his legal counsel and represent the government in criminal cases, but the Attorney General should not have the power to decide on prosecution. that should be a separate office, independent office of the public prosecutor. Now, that is, I think, an important reform that is needed. And of course, when Zahid was DNA, many in civil society and the opposition, of course, raised a lot of noise about it. And the cabinet, quite quickly, within a week, responded by saying that, yes, they agree to do this separation. Two committees have been set up to study into this with a 1 year over timeline. But we are calling for the timeline to be fixed to 1 year. Within a year, this separation must take place. So that is the situation. Bersih has been called in to see the Parliamentary Special Select Committee on this to give a proposal on the separation. So this is this important reform, I think, that has to take place, and we pivot on the Zahid DNAA to achieve this reform. Reform the Election Commission. And the most important area to target, if you want to see a better election, a fairer election, fairer delineation, is not so much even the legal reform. It is reforming the process of how election commissioners are appointed. Now, there are 7 election commissions, 7. And by convention, they have an arrangement. There must be one from Sabah, one from Sarawak. There must be one of Chinese ethnicity, one of Indian ethnicity, and of course, Malay. By convention, that's the understanding. But over the last 5 years, we came to understand how election commission work. There's only, actually, despite 7 commissioners, there's only 2 positions that matters. That is the position of the chairman and the position of the secretary, the election commission secretary, who is a civil servant. These are the 2 positions that basically decide the direction of the EC. Now, as for the secretary, it is controlled by the chief secretary. We have no influence over that. But for the chairman, when Mahathir became Prime Minister in 2018, he actually departed from the tradition of appointing retired civil servants to the election commission. You say, hey, how come retired still appointed? No. You see, as an election commissioner, you can serve until 66 years old. Constitutionally, then you must retire, 66, just like a federal court judge. Then, but as a civil servant, you retire at 60 years old. So the election commission has, for all these years, been basically the reward for loyal, long-serving civil servants, police and everyone. You know, if they serve well, 60 years old, they step down, they are given another position as election commissioner to sit there for 5 to 6 years without doing anything or needing to know anything, and then every month collect a fat salary without going into the office. I have met some of these commissioners in the past, behind closed doors, and I realized they know nothing. They know nothing about the election process, about delineation or the law, you know. And so, how are we going to have reform, electoral reform, when you have basically retirees who are there to collect salaries and not to rock the boat? So if a process has been working for the last 60 years, don't change it. You know, we have been using this paper ballot and things like that for all these years. Why change it? So that is the mentality. That is the reason why, despite the challenges of COVID, over 2.5 years, when we are so desperately in need of innovation in election to keep people safe but able to vote, the election commission essentially did nothing because they don't want to try new things. They are just there to collect their salary. Yeah. So strategically for us, it is disrupt the status quo by asking for the appointment of election commissioner to go through the select committee in Parliament, where there are members of Parliament from different parties, and they are given a set of criteria to shortlist candidates for the Prime Minister to recommend to the King for appointment. Right now, the Prime Minister, Admrl, probably has been lobbied by the civil servants non-stop to fill in the vacancy. And to our disappointment, he has given in so far to the civil servant and appointed them to fill the vacancy. There is one major vacancy coming up, the chairman. Middle of next year, May, he has to retire. Now, we are talking very closely with the select committee, who basically for us per se, the Parliamentary Special Select Committee on Human Rights, Election and Institutional Reform, these are the ones that because all the others we don't focus on. We already explained to them the importance of this, that to take it to the Prime Minister just to allow them to vet and then shortlist the candidates for the Prime Minister to pick from one and send to the Agong. In that way, we hope to get basically a chairman who really is committed to improving the election process and making it fairer. Otherwise, we will not see any change. Even if there is a redelineation exercise, you will not see any change because they will just stick to what they have always been doing. So, reform of the Election Commission is extremely important. Fixed Term Parliament Act, I understand UK has it, something like that. It doesn't mean it's impossible to dissolve Parliament earlier. It just means it's not so easy. Right now, it is totally at the discretion of the sitting Prime Minister to dissolve Parliament. Yeah. And of course, every Prime Minister will pick the most opportune moment for them, they think, to dissolve and win back the House. So, Malaysia basically had a fairly stable Parliament until the 14th Parliament, with Sheraton move, and then change of Prime Minister, 3 Prime Ministers in the one term. We basically have a situation now, the norm is to not go full term. The role of the opposition now is just how to topple the government. The moment election is over, they are already talking about taking over. And that is extremely damaging to the country. You know, if any investor want to come and invest in our country, or put their roots down, they will be thinking twice. So what we are suggesting as a reform is that have the Fixed Term Parliament Act where you can dissolve the Parliament early if you get 2/3 support from members of Parliament because there may be a valid reason to dissolve earlier. Or if the Prime Minister loses the confidence vote. You know, but even that is a problem because there is no procedure in Parliament for a no confidence vote. To put it in a very blunt way, today, if you want to have a vote of no confidence against the Prime Minister, you got to get his permission. Because the Prime Minister, the office, control the agenda of the House. That's where we are at. So, so then we propose codification of the provision and processes for Parliament confidence mechanism. There's no mechanism for a vote of no confidence, so we came out with a policy paper and a research that basically recommend two types of confidence mechanism. The first is, okay, this is actually very important. The problem that we are having in our country right now is that since 2009, the Perak crisis, where the Perak Pakatan Government fell when 3 state assembly persons from Pakatan switched their allegiance to Barisan Nasional. This was Najib's doing. You know, we understood a lot of money was offered, so they switched, and the Pakatan government was falling. And they basically, then the Menteri Besar, the Pakatan Harapan Menteri Besar, wanted to dissolve the state assembly, so he went to see the Sultan to advise the Sultan to dissolve. But the Sultan said, no, let me decide who has the majority. So the Sultan then basically gathered the Barisan Nasional with the 3 defectors and said, okay, you got the majority, so you form the new government. The Sultan got involved, and this process was reaffirmed by the court. So from then on, you realize the formation of government is now decided by the sultans of the states and the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, when it was just a formality. The party, the voter decide on the party decide on the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister, and the formality is the king, the sultan will just recognize that, right? Just like England, right? But from that point onward, it was the palace that decided who become the Prime Minister, who he wants as the Menteri Besar, the Sultan. Give me 3 names, give me 2 names, I'll pick one. Or you don't give me a name, I'll pick anyway, like Johor. It's my state. I mean, we were shocked, you know. I mean, it was, Admrl was, Muhammad Hasni was the Menteri Besar before the election, and he was campaigning as the Menteri Besar to be, you know, and they won 2/3 majority. Handsomely, and next moment, the Sultan picked a young guy, a junior in the party, Admrl, Hafiz on, to be the Menteri Besar. I mean, it was a total, you know. So, what I'm trying to say here, do not underestimate this reform. It looks dull and boring. I should have made it look more interesting, I know. What we are trying to do in one of our report is to shift the formation of government from the palace to Parliament. That there is a clear process in Parliament where the majority of MP is confirmed in Parliament itself through a block vote, not a voice vote, you know, where they actually put down their name, I support this person to be Prime Minister. Confirmatory vote of confidence. Yeah. Then the Parliament was decided, not the King through one-to-one interview during Sheraton move. And she said, secret one-to-one, and then in the end, say, oh, this one got a majority. It cannot be. We have to fix it by empowering Parliament. Then the other one is the constructive vote of no confidence, CVNC. Now this is something that we pick up from the German Parliament. Now Germany, prior to World War II, if I'm not mistaken, in a short period of about like 10 years or 15 years, they had something like 19 change of government. Every time a chancellor loses the majority, they have a new election. Every time someone loses a vote of no confidence, they have a new election. So it became so, if you think Malaysia is messed up, Germany at that time was totally messed up. Until people were so fed up with politics and the political system and of course the economy, they elected a small extreme party, the Nazi party, and their leader, Hitler, as the leader. Came in by election. And of course, once he came in, he dismantled whatever safeguards and entrenched himself and took Germany and the world into a world war. It was after World War 1948 that Germany decided to introduce this confidence vote of constructive vote of no confidence. What it means is that, okay, you don't have confidence in the Prime Minister, you take a vote. Yes, you lost the confidence. You step aside. Immediately after that, they take another vote, you nominate a new candidate now. So they nominate candidate B, and they take another vote. If this candidate cannot command a majority, the incumbent one continue. Just because he lost his majority, it doesn't mean another person has the majority. That's what happened in Malaysia. Mahathir resigned and there was no certainty whether he got majority or not because there was no process. Muhyiddin resigned. Again, there was no certainty whether he got majority or don't have. So, for the sake of the country, this mechanism basically ensures that even if you lose the vote of no confidence and no one has the majority, you continue as a minority government. Now, can that work? Yes, it can work. You can, on ad hoc, sign confidence and supply agreement. If there is a law that you need to pass, a bill you need to pass, you talk to the parties. For this, I need your support to get the majority to pass it. In exchange, what do you want? We're not talking about under-table money and all this thing, hopefully not. But maybe the Green Party will say, okay, if you want my support in passing this bill, then you have to lower the emission standard to this level. Okay, I'll give it to you. Then that's how they can operate. All these years, Germany, to stabilize their system. So this is a very simple thing. It's not talking about constitutional amendment. They're not talking about a new law. It's just the House of Representatives standing orders, the rules to be amended. Amendment to the standing order to empower parliamentary committees and private members. So we are talking about deconcentration of power of the executive and empowering the parliament so that there is a check and balance. Because right now, the parliament truly is controlled by the Prime Minister. They cannot set their own agenda, they cannot introduce private members' bill, they cannot, the select committee that's in place now, there are 10, they don't have the power to summon government servants or the minister for an inquiry, they can just say, sorry, I'm not free. I don't want to come. Azam Baki, that's what he did. The MACC chief, he was embroiled in a share scandal. And when he was summoned by the select committee to appear, he says, I'm sorry, I'm not coming. You cannot force me. And we have to change that. The parliament has to have teeth. You know, if you don't come, there will be consequences. So these are some of the things. I will run very quickly. And related to empowering Parliament is the Parliamentary Services Act. We introduced it because it has been around, but Mahathir in 1992, a lot of this weakening of the Parliament happened under Mahathir. Yeah? He removed it. What Parliamentary Services Act means is that the Parliament has its own budget allocated by the Treasury, not by the Prime Minister. So that it has its own resource to hire their own staff, its own resource to have committees, and basically even to give allocation to the MPs. But right now, everything needs the approval of the Minister of Finance. The Parliament have to go to the Minister of Finance must have money. No, this is in the works, and we are hopeful that this reform actually can take place. Something that Bersih also introduced is the recognition of the opposition's shadow cabinet. This was we recommended this way back when Pakatan was in opposition, but they were a bit half-hearted about it. They responded by forming different committees, but they don't call them shadow cabinet. But this time, when Perikatan is in opposition, they actually formed a shadow cabinet, yeah, to shadow the Ministry of the Government. But whether it's functioning or not, I'm doubtful, but at least that is taking traction. But what we are talking about is more like what I think UK has. As a shadow minister, you get, I think what we are asking is like just 1/3 of the minister's pay, 1/3. In Malaysia's case, it's like 5,000 ringgit a month, you know, to resource the shadow minister and also to provide them access to information, government information, so that they can actually function as an effective shadow cabinet to the government. Now, this is still an idea that is debated, contention, but we are seeing some take-up in that. By the way, all the QR codes are working. You know, they are not just declarations. So this if you want the PDF version of the full report, you just have to scan it and you should straight away be able to download the full report, but otherwise just go to our website, they're all there. Number 8, this is a very current thing, equitable constituency development funding. Now this is what the government would give to, say, the members of parliament, an allocation for them to be used for their constituency. It is not free money in the sense that $3 million, yes, that's the amount a year that government MPs get now, 3 million, whereby they can just spend however they want. No, it has to fulfill certain criteria, and the money has to, the application has to be submitted to the ICU, the Implementation Coordination Unit of the Prime Minister or something like that, for approval and release. So it's not like they are given blank check and you can do whatever. So the way the governments, all this while from Barisan National until now, have chose to do is that they only gave to their own MP. Opposition during Barisan National gets 0, no allocation. Under Pakatan Harapan improvement, Mahathir gave 3.8 million to his own MP, 100,000 to the opposition. Improvement. Muhyiddin basically continued with that amount. Ismail Sabri actually is the most reformist prime minister. Because of the MOU, the confidence and supply agreement he signed with Pakatan, he gave to all Pakatan Harapan the same amount that he gave to his own MP. Right? But Admrl-Gen, who was a victim of this all this year, chose not to give anything. Instead, he used it as a carrot. You want allocation? Well, let's negotiate. Let's make that part of our negotiation. No, to us is a principle. You know why? The past MPs are elected by citizens of Malaysia. Yeah? They have the same standing and rights and should be given the same recognition and honor. So he refused to. And what's happened in the last 2 weeks? 4 of Bersatu MPs found a loophole in the anti-hopping law and say, I give my support to the Prime Minister, but I'm still with the party. Because if you are with the party, you don't lose your seat. Huh? If you leave the party, yeah, you lose the seat in by-election. Say, we only give our support to the Prime Minister because we need the allocation. We need the allocation. So he is using this, Anwar, to fish for support and frankly create political instability because it can go the other way around also. It has in the past Sheraton move. And thirdly, I think any form of party hopping is a betrayal of the voters who put them into office. Don't you agree?
Yes.
I mean, democracy is about respecting the rights of the voter. But I think what he is doing using this is disgraceful. Disgraceful. So we asked for a law, CDF law, so that it is not up to the discretion of any Prime Minister anymore. An elected MP, I agree, 3 million is too much. We would say that at the minimum, they have to have enough to run their service center, pay for all their staff, and also do research. That is what an MP is supposed to do, and they should be resourced at the minimum. Political Financing Act with public funding for parties. So this is the hot one. That is like a durian that is about to drop but haven't dropped. We have been like running around waiting to catch the durian, for the last few years. But and every Prime Minister says, hey, it's going to happen, this thing, oh, delay, But it should be happening under this Madani Government. But it's a question of how strong it is. In other words, how tight is it going to control the funding of political parties? That is the question. I don't know whether it will happen or not. But what we have done, Bersih, was that we actually introduced a new idea, public funding for parties. Now, when we first mentioned that in one of the conferences, people jumped. They get upset. What? Give money to this bunch of corrupt politicians, Aren't they, rich enough and all this thing, why are we giving them more money from taxpayers and that? My answer is very simple. If you do not provide public funding, they will find funding under the table, everywhere. They will know how they have been doing that all this time. They will find a way to make deals with corporate entities and the funders in exchange for deals later on and things like that. They will get the funding, and they have been. Public funding, because political party like anyone else, like us, you know, we need money to operate. They have officers, staff, rental to pay. You know, they have training they need to run, and all these things take money. So why should we penalize them because we are angry? No. Public funding means that they become accountable. Once they receive funding, they have to be a certain level of reporting and accountability to the public. And this idea is beginning to gain some traction with the public and also with the parties, of course. So how it works is like that. We take the German model of 0.05% of the budget, annual budget. So the last time we calculated, this time will be a bit more, but it worked out to 130 million ringgit a year. The 130 million ringgit. So the 130 million, we suggest 10 million ringgit put aside. Now the 10 million ringgit, it is to encourage women participation. It is to be shared by the party that have women elected representatives. So they are encouraged then to fill women in winnable seats, because that is one of the crime shame of our country. It is, I think right now, about 12%. The last parliament was 14% of elected women representatives in parliament. 12%. When women population is 51% or something like that in Malaysia, but only 12% elected. It is a party system that basically keeps women and youth out. We have to give incentive. So this is one of 10 million, but the rest of it are to be divided according to your vote share. So Pakatan got 39%, let's say 40%. 40%, so they should get about 15 million for them to operate in a year. That's a lot of money. Perikatan got 30%, so they should get about 14 million for the whole country, for them to operate, pay their renters, pay their staff, and everything, and divided this way. But there is a minimum threshold. You must, as a party, you must get more than 4% of the vote to qualify for this public funding. Because what we don't want is that any Tom, Dick and Harry, form a party and get 0.5%, Half a percent is about 600,000 or, Bersih also can run, for that amount, and then everybody just going, just to get. So a 4% threshold is we believe, a reasonable threshold, so that only bona fide parties will get the allocation. Okay? So this is an idea that is gaining some traction. We hope it will come in as part of the Political Financing Act, strengthening the Senate. We have always overlooked the Senate, but I think it is about time that we look into reforming the upper house. It is truly, if you think Dewan Rakyat was a rubber stamp, this one is really a rubber stamp. They have no power over financial bills, the budget. If the Dewan Rakyat pass, they cannot object to it, they have to pass. All other law, they can reject it once only. The second time the law come back, they cannot reject. They are all appointed, they are not elected. So we are, one Junaidi actually is a very key ally of Bersih, together with Azalina. Over the last few years, we have found them to be people who understand reform and are committed to a certain level, certain area, I know, I saw that face. Yeah, they are not total reformists, but things that I think they agree with, they will work with you. But he is very committed to reforming the upper house. So we want to explore basically changing the laws to give it real bite, that's number one. Number two, to work towards elected senators rather than appointees of the parties. The state can appoint two, but the state is again the party, you know. But on top of the two, the bulk of the senators are appointed by the winning party as a reward to their loyalists who lost the election, you know. So that's the way it works. We want to change that, but a very important thing, and I hope for your support in this, is that this talk now of increasing the Dewan Raja seat so that Sabah and Sarawak have 1/3 of the parliamentary seats. You know, that sounds good and fine, but as it stands today, Sabah and Sarawak is already overrepresented. In other words, their seats are really so small. Igan in Sarawak has 29,000 voters. Compared to Bangi at 310,000 voters for one MP, that's the size. If you increase the number of seats, it, I think, really kind of like make a mockery of democracy, that the East Malaysians' vote value is 10 times more than, you know, that. But a better solution to us is to give Sabah and Sarawak 1/3 in the Senate, so that, and a Senate that is empowered to veto any unjust policy against them. So, as part of the whole package to address the MA 63 sense of ill treatment of injustice, we are proposing that look at the upper house. You can do something there to empower the East Malaysian over there. So that, I think, is basically the gist of it. The